I've been riding the 701 for about 10 days now and covered about 400 miles. I've used it for commuting to work, I've used it for fun, I've used it outside town, I've used it in town, and I love it. Is it an all and out aggressive supermoto? No, it's not. In my opinion, it's a soft supermoto. Still a supermoto, still feels like one, still behaves like one, but that edginess, that aggressiveness is dialed out of the bike, and I think Husqvarna have done that on purpose. They softened the fueling maps, they softened the suspension a bit, and what they have achieved is it's a bike for every day. Now, I'm not a magazine reviewer, I don't go into the physics of bikes, I'm not biased to this or that. I'm just a guy who rides a bike just like you guys. And my measure when I get on a bike is how do I connect with it, how confident it makes me feel, does it do what I want it to do, and this 701 did everything for me. And I believe if I didn't have any other bike and I wanted a bike to commute on and to go and have some fun and do, you know, some wheelies and the twisties, and this bike will do it. Okay, the sound is not perfect, but which bike comes out of factory with good sound these days? None of them. So you gotta go and change the exhaust. My only gripe with it is that rattly KTM engine. It's still the same thing as the 690. It's at idle, it sounds like a tractor now. And maybe I'm just being nitpicking, but I don't like that sound. But you know, maybe some of you don't mind it. Well, a lot of you don't mind it because they sell that, you know, engine in the bucket load. I'll live with it. If it was my bike, I think I will get used to it, but I just have to say it. I don't like it. At idle only, I have to say as well. Back brake is fantastic. Front brake, as I mentioned before in another video, is spongy and I think it needs to be bled. Suspension is really good and it's fully adjustable on compression and rebound, and the back shock, same thing. I've actually made it a bit stiffer because it was soft. Ergonomically, it is comfortable. That seat, it looks hard, but again, my measure is that I was on the bike for 3 hours and I didn't feel any discomfort. Now that's a lot to say about a supermoto seat. Riding modes, it has 3 and you change them under the seat, which is another gripe of mine. I'll show you in a second how you do that, because you gotta remove the seat and it's just a small dial. It's got 3 riding modes. One is advanced, which is what I set it to. One is standard and another one is soft. I haven't tried the standard, I haven't tried the soft. I presume they just make the throttle response a bit slower and a bit gentler. And there's actually a 4th riding mode, which is when you put the dial to 0, and that is for low fuel quality. I presume when you are stuck somewhere in the middle of nowhere with low octane fuel, you put it into 0, and they tell you shouldn't ride it for more than a day like that. Mirrors, the originals are useless. First thing you gotta do is just chuck them in the bin. Absolutely and utterly useless. Weight wise, it's 147 kilograms dry. It doesn't feel heavy at all. I mean, you can lay it down, put it up. It's very good weight, 147 kilograms. I'm sure change the exhaust, put a lithium-ion battery in it, put a tail tidy, and you will lose another 10 kilos on there. You guys have asked some questions, so let me get the list. I gotta read them from a piece of paper, unfortunately, and let's see what you have asked. How comfy is the seat on a long ride? Well, I already addressed that. It is actually comfortable, but take that with a pinch of salt. I am used to such bikes. I ride enduros for 10 hours straight, so it might not be comfortable to you, and the only person who can answer that is you. And one guy says, Husqvarna seems to be hiding a lot of important information, which to me is a bad sign. What do you mean hiding a lot of information? You can actually Google the owner's manual and you can get all the information that you want on that. So he asks, what is the oil capacity? It's 1.7 liters. How much does the bike weigh? 147 kilograms without fuel. What is the maintenance intervals? It's every 6,000 miles, which is fantastic for such a bike. And with every service, you got to do a valve check. Can you change the suspension settings? Yes, I've already mentioned that. You can change it to your heart's desire. Does the rear tank makes the driving balance different for comparison for front tank? I mean, some people said, oh, look at it, it's so ugly, you feel fuel from the back. Well, the same thing goes with that. My 511, I'm gonna do a comparison in another video between the two. Yes, because all these Supermoto bikes, they have a high center of gravity, so the tank on this one is actually low in the chassis. If I don't know if you can see it from here, there is part of the tank is here, so that lowers the center of gravity. Here is a video of actually me filling it up because one guy wanted to see it, and I talk about fuel economy in that one. There's the question, could you go into detail about fueling up? Interested to know how many miles to a tank of fuel. Here's the video. Well, the low fuel light just came on and it's done 118 miles. That's a combination of motorway, A, B road, single track and town, so it's a good indication actually. But that's me riding. I'm very tough on bikes, so I'm sure if you take it easy you'll get a lot more. And one guy actually asked to see it being refueled. I don't know why. Maybe he likes to see it take it from the back. But here goes. Remember the Grumman, I said an over-engineered gas cap, petrol cap? Well, this is a bit under-engineered. Looks very flimsy. I'm sure it will do the job. I only put V-power in all my bikes. This thing seems shallow, so you'd think that it would spill the fuel, but it actually doesn't. So there goes, it's full blast. And it's funneling it nicely. By the way, that was 10.5 liters I put last time. I think it will be a bit less this time because the fuel light just came on. What was that? 10.18 liters. How much of a lunatic does the 701 make you? A bit, not that much, because as I mentioned, it's not really an aggressive supermoto, and for, you know, so you're not that much of a hooligan. Does the steering lock get in your way? That is one of the things that Husqvarna improved on the KTM. They have improved the steering locks on this, so it turns much tighter. And I did the challenge on this one, and here is the video of it. Please show the display functions more, RJ. Here's the display. It doesn't have a tacho, an RPM thing. People say, oh, that's bad. Well, if you ride and look at the tacho all the time, you shouldn't be riding. Okay, so miles per hour, there's a clock, which is very nice. And I always set the bikes on distance because that tells me when it's close to fueling up. It's got actually a low fuel light here. And you can go into distance 2, which you can reset as well. And average mile per hour, 38. Oh god. And the odometer, which is, so far this bike has done 844 miles. What else? That's it. That's the ABS. To switch it off, you start the bike. When you move, the ABS light goes off, and then you just hold it for a couple of seconds. It stays on, and that tells me that both ABSs are off on front and back. And when you switch off the bike and then switch it back on, by default it goes back on. How does the weight distribution feel between turns? Extremely good. I would like for you to compare it to your 511. Will do. There's the 511 over there, and I'm gonna do a comparison. How does the key look? There's the key, white and blue, like the bike. One guy says they don't have a fuel gauge. How can you tell when you run out? Well, I already said that. I always put the distance meter, and you know, on all my bikes I know approximately when I need to fuel, whether they do have a gauge or not. And this one has a low fuel light anyway, which goes into reserve, and it takes 13 liters of fuel, which is very, very good. Okay, now a lot of you have said it's another KTM 690, so let me tell you what the differences are. Suspension on this one is tuned a bit softer out of factory, but obviously you can tune it to your heart's desire. The seat is they made it a bit wider for more comfort. Fuel tank is 1 liter more capacity. The steering, which we already discussed, is much better. And the steering angle has been increased as well, I think, to make it a bit less nervous for novice riders. Now I'll show you how to change the engine modes, which is another gripe of mine, because, well, not a lot of people change them. But when you do need to change it, this is the procedure. You unclip this front, and then there is a I don't know if you can see it here, this thing here. You just pull it, and that releases the lock there. Let's put this on the floor so it doesn't fall. Here it is. You pull this out, and the protective cover, and then you get to such a small dial with an arrow there, and then you gotta turn it. Now, why can't we put that dial somewhere here? Okay, leave it mechanical, leave it protected, but put it here so people can change from soft to standard to advanced. It's just such a flaff to do all that stuff. Let's cover it and put it back. Now if I show you in comparison on, well, no, I'll do that later. I wanted to show you on the 511. Okay, it's back in. So just to summarize, if you want an everyday bike that you can have a lot of fun on, whether you're in town, out of town, and the twisties, to commute on, it is a very, very good bike. And that's my opinion. And nobody should sway your opinion, whether me or magazines or whatever. Go out, try it, and make your own decision. I'm gonna miss it, actually.